Okay, welcome back to the class, Mana. So we started about forest habitat. Okay, we are discussing about forests. Here, different types of flora and fauna can be available in the forest that we discussed in the previous class. So let us see what are the living and non-living things that are present in the forest. So non-living things are called as abiotic components. Abiotic components and living things are called as biotic components. Biotic components. The abiotic components already we discussed air, water, sunlight, soil, temperature. Right? All these are abiotic components. And whereas biotic components they include plants, animals and decomposers. Plants, animals and decomposers. Right? So let us discuss about these biological things or biotic components or biological things, living things. Plants. What are called plants here? Plants, they are naturally they are autotrophs. Plants are called autotrophs. What it means? It can able to prepare its own food material. It do not depend upon other for the food. Why? Because it has the capacity to produce its own food material by the process called photosynthesis. It can perform photosynthesis. So how do it performs photosynthesis? In presence of sunlight. In presence of sunlight, it combines carbon dioxide and water. These two are non-living things. Abiotic components. Abiotic components. So sunlight, it is also abiotic component. So by using, there is an interaction between abiotic and biotic components. Now by using these abiotic things, plant can able to prepare food. Right? This is the food for plant itself and as well as this is the food for remaining animals and decomposers. Right? So plus it also gives us the water and oxygen. Water and oxygen, which are all are necessary for the survival of animals. So here plant is the only thing which can able to produce food. It only giving us food. It only giving us food. So that plants are called as autotrophs and they are first in the food chain. Why? Because the food chain starts with the food giving organism. Food giving organism is the plant. And those who gives the food, they are called as producers. They are the producers of plants. Sorry, food. They are producers of food. So producers always produce food. And always producers are the first in the food chain. Say for example, this is the grass. And it is a plant, it can prepare the food by photosynthesis so that it is producer. It is producer. So plants in forest, not only in forest, at every food chain, in every ecosystem, any habitat, plant is the producer. Plant is the producer. Say for example, this plant is eaten by grasshopper. It is eaten by grasshopper. And grasshopper is eaten by frog. For example, grasshopper is eaten by frog. Okay. What happened now? Frog it eats the grasshopper. And now frog is eaten by snake. It is eaten by snake. So when you compare here, producer is the plant and remaining all are they are taking food from someone. They are taking food from someone. So all these animals are called as heterotrophs. These are heterotrophs. Heterotrophs, they do not prepare their own food, they depend upon other for the food. They eat other for the food. Right? So now here these grasshopper, frog, snake, they are taking food from some other. They are taking food from some other, so they are called as consumers. They are called as consumers. Consumer means those who are taking. Producer is producing the food, consumer is taking the food. Either they will take from the plant or from other animals, whatever it may be, they take the food from other. And imagine what happens if snake die. What happens if snake die? The dead body will be eaten by decomposers. Dead body is eaten by decomposers. Right? Now decomposers, they decompose the dead body of the snake and they add the nutrients present in the snake into the soil. They add the nutrients to the soil. Again these nutrients can be taken up by the plant for its growth and it generates the food. So this food chain will always continues. The food chain always continues. So what it is called? Food chain. What it explains? Actually food chain explains us about the food relation between the producers, consumers and decomposers. It explains about the food relation between producers, consumers, decomposers. So producers are the plants, consumers are the animals, decomposers are the bacteria and fungi. Bacteria and fungi, they depend upon dead bodies of producers and consumers. Right? So here, even in the consumers, there are 3 levels. In the consumers, there are 3 levels. We'll discuss in deep in further session, but I am giving just introduction. Here, consumers are present in 3 levels. Primary consumer, secondary consumer and tertiary consumer. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary consumer is always depend upon the plants, so plant eating animal. Whereas here grasshopper is the primary consumer, we depend directly upon the plant. Next, secondary consumer. Secondary consumer either depends upon the plants or primary consumer. So this is what we call secondary consumer. So frog is the secondary consumer. Whereas tertiary consumer is the organism which depends only on the animal product. It do not eat the plant product. Right? So it is called tertiary consumer. Primary, secondary, tertiary. If you notice the food habits, then food habits are also different. Grasshopper eats only plant, frog eats plant and insect, whereas snake eat only frog. Means some are herbivorous, some are omnivorous, some are carnivorous. So a food chain tells us about the levels and their food habits. The food relation between producers and consumers and decomposers, if it explained by the chain form, it is called food chain. What we call it is food chain. Right. So in a food chain, primary consumers are always herbivores. Primary consumers are always herbivores. What is meant by herbivores? The animals which eat only plant and plant products. Plant and plant product, they are called herbivores. So primary consumers are maximum herbivores. They directly depend upon the plant. Whereas secondary consumers like frog, it is depending upon plant and animal. When frog is in the tadpole form, when it is in small form, small baby frog, it eats the plant. When it become adult, it come out of the water and it eats the insect. Means it is eating plant in the initial, later it is eating animal. Means it eats plant and as well as animal. So the organism which eats plant and as well as animal, it is called as omnivorous. Right? They are called omnivores. Means they eat plant products and as well as animal products. Both can be eaten by the frog. Right? Have understood? Next, come to third one, tertiary consumer. Maximum tertiary consumers are carnivores. Maximum they are carnivores. What is meant by carnivore? Which eats only flesh or meat or animals, other animals. So these carnivores, they never touches the plant. They never touches the plant. They don't eat plant product. No. Definitely they eat only animals and animal products. Animals and animal products. So remember here, carnivores, they do not depend upon the plants. But remember one thing, they may not directly depend upon the plant, but indirectly they depend upon the plant. So how do they depend, and what is this dependence between living and non-living thing in the forest ecosystem we discuss in the further classes. So I hope you understood today's lecture, and we'll meet in the next class. Thank you.